Let's do it. Okay. Am I in the middle? I think we're good. Hi, everybody. We are live. It is Wadih Wednesday. For those of you that are hopping on and joining us today, I am really excited to introduce our guest, which I will do in a few moments. We just wanted to get people ready to go. Uh, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be a creative within our Arab culture. Yes, we have options here, and our guest is going to show us that. Mita, how's it looking? Are we live? How's it looking? How's it going?
Yes, we are live on Instagram and YouTube. We have people joining in. I'm gonna let you see everything in the chat now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody, say good morning to, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, to Mita. Speaking of that, where is everyone coming in from? It's always exciting to see for those that are joining us new. This is Community for International Arab. We are a community to talk about health and wellness topics within our cultural context. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tiffany Tuatah. I'm a marriage and family therapist coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. And I'm joined by my right-hand person, the person that makes the back end, all this move. Mita, come and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Mira. I'm so happy to be with you today. So happy to have Paul with us too. I'm joining you from Egypt, and it's just my pleasure to join you and to be a part of this live. If you have any questions, just make sure to leave them in the comments, and I'll let Tiffany and Paul see them, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. And remember, we're streaming on different platforms. So if you see us looking in different places, if you see Tiffany looking in different cameras, that's because we're streaming on Instagram and YouTube. And you'll be able to watch the full live again on YouTube, just in case you're going to miss any part of it. Just know that. And the link is always in the bio. You'll find it there.
That's right. And with that said, we have lots of content on our YouTube channel that you're more than welcome to take a look at. Topics on how to manage chronic anxiety. Perhaps there may be some wounds around your mother and father and the complications that come with that within our cultural context. Not feeling good enough. All these different things that are shaped by our cultural lens. So feel free to check it out. They're all there for you. Let's see who's joining us. We've got Artizarian joining. We've got MRN13. Welcome. We've got Meeting Makeup Artistry joining as well. Welcome, welcome. I think it's Alama, Brahim El Masi. Good. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening. We've got Yusuf in the house. We're going to be starting in just a minute. Where's everyone coming in from? We've got Mahran. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Welcome, welcome. Oh, we've got Tim in NYC. Love that. All right, we've got Artizarian. Hello from Palestine. I think both Paul and I are Palestinian Americans, and we welcome you. Let's see. Psycho-literature. All right, it's 8 o'clock. Dubai's in the house. It's Madhu. Welcome. So we've got Dubai, we've got Palestine, we've Detroit. Detroit Khalil's in the house. Is it true that Detroit has one of the highest or largest Arab populations?
Dearborn, I believe, is one of the other centers of Palestinian American population in the United States.
Yeah. Let's see, Ibrahim, you're from, Ibrahim, I think we've seen you joining our lives from California. Welcome. We've got Algeria and US, Tim, NYC. Adam has joined us. All right, well, let's get started because we have a lot to talk about today. Today's guest, everyone, brings a lifetime of storytelling, education, deep connection to the written word. Paul Toda. I'm joined by Paul Toda, Palestinian American and San Francisco native, is the author of several books, including Refugee, Poems of El Salvador and Palestine. Paul had his start in journalism at Santa Clara University, where he served as editor-in-chief of the school newspaper before working for 5 newspapers around the Bay Area. After 3 years working with homeless teens, he earned his master's degree in creative writing from San Francisco State University and began teaching English literature at St. Ignatius College Preparatory, his alma mater. He served there between 1985 and 2020. Along the way, he edited the school's alumni magazine for 33 years and became SI's first director of communications. The books he wrote include The San Francisco Fair, Treasure Island, 1939 to 1940, Spiritus Magis, 150 Years of St. Ignatius College Preparatory, The Gospel of Everyone, a poetic retelling of the Gospel of Luke, and many, many other books, which Mita will have in the chat for you guys to take a look at. Paul's poetry and prose have been published in Isotope, Mission Magazine, Company Magazine, Catholic San Francisco, and Santa Clara University's Alumni Magazine. He served as a board chair for Company Magazine and has presented on a variety of topics concerning communications and local history at conferences around the country. Please join me in welcoming writer, educator, and lifelong storyteller and cousin, Paul Toda.
Tiffany, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to have a worldwide audience. Thank you for putting this together.
So cool. Well, we are thrilled. Paul, one of the reasons why I thought, well, first, I wanted to share a little story for everyone. I also am born and raised native San Franciscan Palestinian American. And growing up, we came from a very close-knit community. And there were not a lot of examples of people doing anything in the creative arts, teaching, anything outside of Dr. Mahami or Mahandas. We didn't really have a lot of examples of that. Well, for me, as a young daughter of immigrants, Paul was the first person that I remember hearing about of doing the things that he was doing, teaching, writing. And for me, it gave a lifeline, a light that perhaps I could be able to do something outside of what, well, at that time for women, getting married, that there was possibilities for Arab to do things outside of what the cultural expectation was of our society. So Paul, I wanted to thank you for being that example, that lifeline, that there are possibilities. And just your bio, my gosh, you've done so much in this career. And I wanted everyone who's listening today, if you are in the creative arts, that you can have a very viable, fulfilled career in it. So Paul, I wanted them to have a real life example of that, because I don't think we really honor that part in our culture.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it is amazing how young people can get pressure from their parents to follow a certain path. And I think it comes from a sense of fear that, unless you make a lot of money, you're not going to have a secure future. And so parents want the best for their children. Understandably, I want the best for my children. And we kind of urge them to take the safer path, the more lucrative path. And thankfully, I had a good example in avoiding that path. Even though my father really wanted me to be an engineer, I was very good at math as a young man. But the example that he set for me was important. My dad, when I was growing up if you were an Arab in San Francisco, if you were a Palestinian, you had a corner store, you had a little market, you worked your butt off day in and day out, and you made a lot of money, and you moved to a wealthy part of town eventually, but that's what you did. My dad did not do that. My dad was orphaned. Well, his father died when my dad was 2. My dad was raised in an orphanage in Jerusalem, the Terra Santa orphanage, even though his mom was alive, living in Ramallah. And in 7th grade, when the Franciscans began charging for room and board and for education, his relatives took him out and told him, "You're going to be an apprentice barber. You're going to cut hair for a living." When he came to this country in 1951, he came on a student visa, and he said, "What does a barber study? I'll become a hairstylist." So he was the only Arab hairstylist in San Francisco. So he broke the mold himself, and that kind of gave me permission to follow my passions.
I absolutely love that. And so, how do you think being Arab or being Falastini shaped your voice as a writer, whether consciously or unconsciously? How do you think that shaped what you do?
I tell people I grew up in a village in a city, and the village was a village of my cousins in the city of San Francisco. We got a lot of cousins, Tiffany. I think at one point, I think the count was 5,000 in the Bay Area. It's probably far more than that now. And as most people know, the town of Ramallah was founded by 5 families, and they were all a product of intermarriage, and everyone was related, 15,000 cousins. And how did that shape me? It gave me a sense of security and also a sense of otherness. There weren't a lot of other Palestinians living near me in the Sunset District of San Francisco, going to the Catholic grammar school that I went to. But I definitely felt a warm embrace of the community and a sense of otherness. Early on, when the PLO was making headlines, I kind of felt like I was, part of this terrorist group. I was a Palestinian. People looked at Palestinians as terrorists. That was the shorthand. And then later, I kind of identified as a victim. Palestinians were victims. Luckily, I got beyond both of those tropes and see myself as a human being, as a citizen of the world. And I'm not a victim, and I'm not a terrorist, and I'm trying to do some good, trying to be a healer. So that's how my Palestinianness shaped who I am.
I can really relate to that, especially growing up in the city in the 70s. It was rough times for Palestinians at that time. Well, it's still rough, but at that time, we didn't have the voices that we have now and the exposure that we had now. And for some of us, it put us at significant risk in many ways. So let's talk a little bit more. If you're okay with talking about poetry, your poetry, it is phenomenal. And I would love if we had time for you to, perhaps if you felt comfortable, to read.
Oh, of course.
One of the poems, that would be amazing. What do you think drew you to poetry? And because I think it's very unique.
Sure. What drew me to poetry was a love of language. I read early on. I can't remember the how old I was when I started reading, probably 3 or 4. And I love stories. I love the illustrated books. I had this book about King Arthur, and the beautiful illustrations drew me in. I loved comic books as a little kid. And the fascination of story and how I could see myself in the scenarios that I was reading as a young man. Later, I realized I had some gift as a poet. In high school, I would write sonnets in my English class, and I was surprised that they were actually pretty good. And my teachers offered a certain kind of praise. And let me explain that. I had one Jesuit priest, Father Frank McPeck, who would take a stack of essays in his hand after reading them for the week, and he would take mine out and he'd look at it, and he'd read the worst sentence in it. And he would say, Toda, were you high when you wrote this? And he would throw it in the air and it would flutter down. He'd do that a few more times for a few other students. And then he'd just throw the whole pile up in the air and he'd say, just get him out of my sight, get him out of my sight. Well, I pick up that paper and I got an A on it. But what he did was he picked the very worst sentence that I had written, the one that was not well crafted. And he told me that every word mattered. Every sentence mattered. This was important stuff that I was doing. He was also a priest who believed in social justice, who wanted to take his students to protest during the United Farm Workers boycott of grapes. He wanted us to stand in front of corner stores and that were selling grapes and say, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And my father had to remind me that those were my cousins who owned those stores. And maybe that wouldn't be the smartest thing to do. But he was the one who taught me that words and action were connected, that words were a kind of activism. And I certainly understood that when I worked did the school paper in my high school and in college, and then throughout my journalistic career. You know, you try to do good. You try to reveal what needs to be revealed. You try to share the multiple viewpoints to try to arrive at something that approaches the truth.
That is so powerful and such an important message for anyone listening that is a writer or wants to become a writer, that what Paul said or what his Jesuit teacher had said, you know, every word matters, and the advocacy that comes with it, right? The resistance that writing is a form of, writing, sometimes it gives people accessibility in ways that other forms of advocacy don't.
And I like how journalism and poetry, which are seen as opposites almost, journalism is straightforward, dry, to the point. Poetry is metaphoric. Poetry takes imaginative leaps. But I think the best poetry is journalistic and the best journalism is poetic. I love writers. I loved Robert Fisk from The Independent, who passed away. He believed lived in Lebanon and wrote one of the more brilliant journalists about everything in the Middle East. And his prose, you could sing it out loud. It was so well written. Some of my poetry is also journalistic. I read the news and I have to translate that into something else to help give it another dimension, to help carry the emotive impact of what just happened.
So, Paul, for anyone that's desiring to move into this career or to move forward in that, what would be let's say someone, I'm getting pushback from my family. No one's any words of wisdom you can offer someone that may want to do this, but the culture or our society may be pushing against that.
Sure. So when I was at Santa Clara University, I took some courses in economics to kind of make my dad a little happier that I was taking something a little on the practical side. One of the jobs I had was I was the business editor at the Dispatch in Gilroy. And that was partly based on the economics classes I had. So it's not a bad thing to have a practical dimension to the creative thing you're doing. In terms of how to address parents who are critical, you have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to know what gives you life, what gives you joy. It's become a cliche. It's become something that too many people repeat, but it is very true. Follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. You have to figure out what your bliss is, what gives you passion, what gives you life, and then pursue it. And not just pursue it casually, figure out a path forward. For me, it was not only majoring in English in college, but deciding to do a master's in creative writing at San Francisco State. I had some great teachers there, including Stan Rice. Most people don't know Stan Rice's name, but they know his wife's name, Anne Rice, who wrote the Vampire Chronicles, Interview with a Vampire. And he was among the best teachers I've ever had. Mark Linenthal, who was one of the original poets in San Francisco. He testified at the trial where Lawrence Ferlinghetti was put on trial for publishing Allen Ginsberg's Howl. It's Anne Fraser, a phenomenal, wonderful poet who opened up her home to us as well as and her life and taught me about abstract expressionist poetry. So find great mentors, find great teachers, find the programs that will help you succeed.
That is wonderful. And it really is, when you say believe in yourself, anytime you may be pursuing a career outside of our culture, I love what Paul, there is so much fear. They just don't know. And you may be the trailblazer. You may be the only one in your community doing what you're doing. And that's why we started Community for International Artists. So you always have a space here, and Paul, and the video on YouTube to go back to hear Paul's words, to continue to believe in yourself and move forward. Paul, is there, when, as Arab, do you wait for inspiration, or do you force sometimes as Arab, it's either this all or nothing thinking. It's either perfect or don't do it at all, or there's some of those core beliefs that we have, so when you're a writer, do you wait for inspiration, or do you force discipline? What's behind the creative process?
Several answers. The first one is that when I was a young reporter, I had a deadline. I'd sometimes take the streetcar to go to a meeting, hear a speaker speak. On the streetcar ride back to the office, I was writing the story in my head. I had 15 minutes to get the story done by the time I was at my desk. You don't believe in writer's block. If you have writer's block, you're fired. You just have to write. So you write, and you realize that writing is really rewriting. So you write it, then you polish it, then you polish it again, and then you polish it again. But you don't let anything stop you from writing. You don't wait for inspiration. You have to have the perspiration that leads you to start writing in the first place. But at the same time, I use my poems as a diary. If I'm suddenly feeling a little antsy, I need to do something, I'll always just grab my laptop and start writing a poem. And I always just think about what's the most vivid image that I can recall from the past few hours. What story just happened in the news that moves me to respond to it in some way. And sometimes I feel something terrible happens and I need to write about it. I have I'm just putting together another collection of poetry based on the eulogies that I've written. Friends and family who've passed away, whose lives I think need to be memorialized in some poetic way. So part of it is you don't wait. Part of it is you write, and part of it is you respond to whatever it is you're feeling. If you need to write something, you write it.
I cannot, first I got chills when I thought, wow, because these are our stories. These are our stories as a people, and how can we continue to share about the lives of our ancestors and our loved one, and continue to keep not only their memory alive, but their journeys as inspiration. And I think younger generation, sometimes we forget what our families have gone through. Many times we don't know the extent of their stories, and to be curious and to maybe ask and create those stories for them, I think can be very healing for us as a community. Paul, you mentioned writer's block. I'm wondering, for young writers, how do you handle that self-doubt or creative blocks?
Well, for my students, I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that's not so offensive, but Stan Rice said, you really don't need my class to be a good writer. What you need is a library card, because everything that he was teaching we can read in the library. And you need to build your own BS detector, your own shit detector. Why? Because ultimately you got to write and then wait a little bit and then read through it and figure out what needs to be cut out and then rewrite that and rewrite that and rewrite that. So the best advice I could give anybody is just write as quickly as you can. Let your unconscious mind speak, give it voice, and then, just write as much as possible. Stephen King, in his wonderful book on writing, talks about going back to the finished work or work that you've just finished and cutting it down 75%, then going to that and cutting that down 75%, and get to the point where all that's left is the good stuff. But you first have to just free the unconscious and write as quickly as possible.
Mita, how are we doing on time? Should we get some questions or see if there's any comments?
Yes, we have a comment from Arda Zurian, I believe. She said, I love how writers or creators share the personal. Was hoping this wouldn't be like a lecture, but genuine. And that's what this is. It's like a nice, intimate conversation.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
I love that. Anybody have any questions for Paul? Now, take this opportunity to really ask anything that you feel may be meaningful. But someone did have an interesting comment. Mita, can you read that? Detroit. Sure. Let's see how we can unpack this comment.
It says, I spent 20 years as a journalist only to quit last year, fed up with the depth of racism and temperamental bias at every level of society. Turns out my parents were right all along.
Sometimes parents are right. Yeah, I had an issue with journalism too. I had bosses, I had publishers. If you know the world of newspapers, the editor-in-chief is in charge of the content. The publisher is in charge of the business side of things, making sure ad revenue can pay for the paper and pay all the salaries. And I didn't like a lot of my bosses. I didn't like a lot of the publishers. And some had egos like you wouldn't believe. Some were violent people. And some were far more concerned with making money than with good journalism. So the one of the reasons I left journalism was I was a little bit disillusioned with the model. I have good friends who stayed in journalism who are wonderful writers and work for great publications. One of my best friends used to be the travel editor at the Chronicle, and I have so much respect for good journalism. But it's a difficult world to be in. It doesn't pay very well. I suddenly got a huge bump in salary when I became a Catholic high school English teacher from being a journalist. It was a little ironic.
I'm going to thank you for, I didn't realize, it sounds like it was the wild, wild west over there. That I didn't realize how every industry has its thing, but that, for some reason, that was my own. I just thought maybe there'd be a little bit more decorum, but.
I'm a little older than you, Tiffany. I remember the hard days of when reporters had a lot of liquor in their desks and a little bit soused. Got it.
All right. Well, that makes for an interesting day at work. Detroit Khalil, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. Turns out your parents were right all along. 20 years in a career. I'm not quite sure what that means. If they were right all along, you may have quit or you may have ended your career as a journalist. However, I don't know if, it just sounds like there may be some regret, and I will encourage you to really focus on what you did get from that 20-year career and to focus on how you grew and expanded as a person. I think it's really important that we tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater and we tend to say all of it was bad, right? That defense mechanism, all bad or all good. And a 20-year career as a journalist, Paul, could you attest that that's probably not easy to do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. it's a tough job. When I was in Gilroy, there were floods, and we got calls in the middle of the night to go out and cover the floods. So it's not like being an EMT or a paramedic, but you're sort of on call. And my heart goes out to journalists who cover war. As we all sadly know, too many journalists have died around the world, especially in Palestine and Gaza. It's a dangerous profession.
I can't even, I get too flooded when I think about just what's happening to our journalists and how the suppression of the truth. I could say a lot more about that, but I just realized it's such a heavy topic. Paul, let me kind of take us back a little bit to the family. How did your family respond to, I know your father was supportive, gave permission, but what about other people in the community? How did they respond to your work?
People my age were very supportive. Growing up in San Francisco in the 60s, I was born in 57. Growing up in San Francisco in the 60s was an interesting blend of conservative and extremely liberal. You can imagine the Summer of Love was 67. The free speech movement happened in Berkeley in the early 60s. My God, it was just, I would ride my bicycle through Golden Gate Park, and there were the Grateful Dead and the Airplane, just playing free concerts. So it wasn't a time when the world said you have to conform. So all of my cousins my age were very supportive and also seeking their own paths. We have a cousin, Isa Tota, who became a very successful screenwriter and actor. Betty Chimier has this wonderful book out. My cousin Elena Dudum, the daughter of my cousin Rick Dudum, has a forthcoming book out about growing up Palestinian American. So luckily, there were peers and people younger than me who were pursuing careers in acting, in writing. The Tota Studios. We have a cousin who's making wonderful art. So luckily I had support from colleagues. One of the picture on the cover of this book was taken by Najib Joe Hakim, who is a local photographer in San Francisco, and to be able to collaborate with other folks, Palestinian and non-Palestinian, was a great joy as well.
That's awesome. Maybe, Paul, since you have the book, would you be open to reading something from the book for anyone that's listening so we can connect to your words?
Certainly. This is a poem called Nomenclature, written in 2025. So don't call it genocide. Call it the slaughter of innocents. Not Herod this time, but another man running from his own evil by hiding behind a stack of bodies piled like kindling. No need to call it genocide. Just consider it a burnt offering of infants, toddlers, preschoolers, schoolgirls, those just starting their freshman year and dreaming of what their lives might be one day beyond the death that falls like arrows from an iron sky. Let's not call it genocide. Instead, let's pretend that the grandmothers shot while holding white flags are simply ghosts from another time, when the grandparents of these soldiers buried villages under a sea of blood, over which floated a raft of bones. Think of this, if you wish, as stop-motion murders, and count those who died decades ago, years ago, just yesterday, right now, and imagine the faces of the dead who will join them after disease and famine make their rounds. Call this what it is, apocalypse, the contagion of revenge gone mad that sickens us all, the heartbroken, the fallen, those trying to stay alive, all who want to look anywhere but here at the truth of who we all are in our impotence, our evil, our rage, and our hate.
Oh, oh,
And that was a response to the, it's not really a genocide. It's not a genocide. How can you call it a genocide? Oh, you're one of those guys who believes this is a genocide. I'm going to dismiss you right away. So, you have to respond to the horror.
I don't know, and maybe people can comment. This is the beauty of poetry and art, because it takes you to deeper layers of the pain in a way that talk therapy can't, because you could feel it. I felt every word. I don't know if other people, maybe I'm getting sensitive. But thank you, Paul. Because I think this is what art can do and what writing can do. It can speak to emotions that we can't even articulate ourselves.
And Tiffany, my hope too is that by naming the evil, we somehow it leads us to healing. It leads us on a path toward reconciliation. I'm not a person who believes in violence at all. I don't think that picking up arms and fighting is at all legitimate. My hope is that we can figure out a way to live together, all of us, all around the world, in peace, in a way that creates sustainability, that creates a verdant world, that creates a young people who are healthy, who love themselves and love their neighbors, who have a sense of the spiritual. So, if I name the evil, it's not to create hate and generate more hate. It's to figure out a way forward that makes sense.
Yes, I definitely felt that. It was to deepen by speaking on the evil. It evoked the deeper humanity within oneself. Like, I felt that. It's like, we don't want that. And how can we not be that? And that's where poetry, writing, art, pottery, all these things are so important, because these are Arab are so much more than what people see. I mean, look at our history. Mystics, poets,
Inventors of algebra. My
Inventors.
God, yeah.
And I don't know what's happened to us as a society. That have we lost that, and can we expand and grow more into that, to create more humanity, to create more connection with one another, and to thread the stories of our ancestors? I mean, this runs so deep.
I think of all the allies that Arab Americans have, especially our Jewish allies, folks in Jewish Voice for Peace. I'm a huge fan of Peter Baynard, who I'm tangentially related to by my family, because my daughter married a young man whose aunt was a partner of Peter Baynard's father. So if you can get that weird convoluted relationship. And I had a chance to meet Peter and speak with him. And I am so impressed by how clearly he speaks the truth for both sides, what's best for Israeli Jews, for American Jews, and for Arab Americans, and for Palestinians. What gives me life, what gives me hope, are all the good people out there doing so much good, whether they're Palestinian, whether they're Egyptian, or whether they're Jewish.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. So I want to be, I thought I wanted to be respectful of your time. And I thought maybe we can wrap up with any parting words to anyone that wants to.
I have a poem I wrote recently. I try to write a poem every Good Friday. This is called The Dark and the Light. Is it okay if I read it?
Please.
All right. And I start with a quote from the Times of Israel. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir physically carried a champagne bottle onto the floor of the Knesset to celebrate. He wore a golden noose-shaped lapel pin throughout the proceedings. When the vote passed, the chamber erupted in tears. And this was, of course, the vote to allow the death penalty for Palestinian terrorists, not Israelis. So this is the poem that I wrote. For this Good Friday, I tried to write about the news coming from Jerusalem, not the genocide, but the vote to hang women and men who happen to be Palestinian. Not the settlers who burned alive an 18-month-old boy near Nablus. Not the soldiers who riddled a car with bullets for the crime of driving. I tried to channel my anger and rage and follow my muse and moral compass as it pointed toward the path of righteous indignation. But something happened when I awoke at 5 a.m., seeing moonlight blasting through my bedroom window, reminding me that 4 astronauts are arcing their way toward the dark side of the moon. That through the darkness, light finds its way to our blighted planet. That despite our lesser selves, we still aim to do good, to find a way to advance in an evolutionary leap beyond tribes, nooses, or the belief that any one of us is better than the other. I hope those astronauts who worked together to fix their toilet will see something wondrous as they stare at the blue-green world through their window, something that brings them hope, even as they round the moon and face a greater darkness. On their return, may they draw a slip knot to seal and heal us, to release us from a past, like a suture mending the wound of this bleeding world, while we finger the scars on our hands and stare at the unknowable stars.
Oh.
So there is light, there is goodness. Despite the horrors that we see, there is good in this world, and we need to harness that good to heal, to fight for justice, to achieve peace, to make this world a livable place. I have a grandson who's 2. My granddaughter will be born in August, and I'm hoping to leave this world a better place for them than the one that was given to me back in 1957.
Thank you so much, Paul. And your poem echoes our tagline here is Nawartit Nawar, that the light in me sees the light in you. And if we can channel our pain, whether it's through art, film, writing, to channel it into creating more light, creating more compassion and understanding. And that's what the creative arts can bring. I'm really so inspired by everything that you've shared today. And I wanted to thank you so much for your words. And for those that are really wanting to read more of Paul's poetry, I highly recommend this particular book, Refugee Poems of El Salvador and Palestine. And then, Paul, where can people find you? Where can they maybe explore or learn more about you?
Well, my email is ptotah, P then Totah at siprep.org. And anyone can reach out to me there. I do have a website, but Tiffany, it's I haven't updated it in years. You can Google me. There's a lot of stuff on me online. I am doing a benefit reading May 20th. All the proceeds of the book, by the way, go to Benefit Mecca, the Middle East Children's Alliance based in Berkeley, California here. And I'll be doing the reading in Berkeley for that. There's a Quaker publication that just wrote a review of my book. I can send you the link to that review, and feel free to share it with your audience as well. And again, anyone can reach out to me, and I'm happy to share anything with them.
Thank you so much, Paul. Well, if you guys have any questions or want to learn more about Paul, please feel free to go to the resources that he had mentioned. I wanted to, again, thank you so much for being an inspiration to our community, for being the voice of our people in a way that we need to hear more of, and that's through the creative arts and through writing and poetry.
And Tiffany, thank you for all you do for our community, for mental health, for keeping us sane in a world that it's much harder to stay sane in these days.
Well, thank you. We'll just all come together as one people to uplift one another. So thank you, Paul. I wish you the very best. And for those we've got some yellow news, so we're going to say goodbye to Paul, and then I hope to see you again, Paul, and have you come on again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. What a great conversation.
Wasn't it amazing?
Yeah, and everything he read is just like, it really touches the heart. It's really deep. I love it.
So powerful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. So we're going to go over some yellow news before we end the live, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes. So for anyone that would like to seek some help with anything with this life that we live, that's really hard for us to. I don't know why I got emotional. I feel like this time I want to say yellow news in a different way, because most of the time we just get comments of people asking, do you offer consultations, or do you offer workshops? And I'm just like, yes, you can find the link in bio. But I don't know, today I feel like,
yeah, let's forget the yellow news. Let's all sit in the space and in the words of Paul and his poetry and the power of the word. And each and every one of you listening has a story. Your families have a story. And understanding and writing about those stories is important. And so find your voice in whatever way that is. And we'll end by saying, Nawar, the light in me sees the light in you. May all of you move forward in peace, love, community, and may we all continue to uplift ourselves and our world so that we can be the change we want to see. All right, everybody, have a good one. I'll see you next week on Wadih Wednesday for a topic. And if you have any topic ideas, please let me know. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.